Yo, what is going on, guys? Today I'm going to be giving my NFL DraftKings picks for Week 14. I'm going to go through each position and talk about some players I'm looking to target, just each price range. If there are studs I like each position, be sure to hit on those. If there are mid-tier plays I like, I'll touch on those. And if there's value, we'll also be sure to give you some value plays I like each position. But yeah, guys, before we get started, if you guys could drop a like on the video, I would definitely appreciate it. Also, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. I do upload NFL videos every week. I make recap videos on Monday. I make first look videos on Monday. I do these full picks videos on Thursday. So bringing out a ton of NFL content for you guys. I make NBA videos daily as well. So you're going to want to make sure you're subscribed with notifications on, so that way you'll never miss out on any of my new videos. But yeah, guys, let's go ahead and get started looking at some quarterbacks to target this week. Alright, so at quarterback, I don't really like a lot of the expensive options just at the top. I doubt I'm going to be on Carson Wentz, doubt I'm going to be on Rivers, Goff, maybe Alex Smith because he's coming off a really good game, good matchup against Oakland at home, but I feel like Alex Smith might actually be sort of popular this week because a lot of people are going to be chasing that 40-point game that he had last week. But it is a really good matchup for Alex Smith. I think if I want to go to the mid-tier or pay up, he's probably the guy I'd target. But I've said this before, I really always like to go cheap at quarterback, especially in my cash games. For tournaments, you can obviously pay up for pretty much anybody. Guys like Carson Wentz, Goff, even Phillip Rivers. These guys do have pretty high ceilings. But these top-tier quarterbacks are definitely not the ones that I'm going to be heavy on this week. I do like some of the cheaper options that we'll touch on in a second. But if I was to pay up, if I did go for like tournaments, wanted to pay up here, I'd probably go with Alex Smith, 6,500. And then one guy I do want to talk about in this mid-tier is Russell Wilson, 6,200. Doubt I'm going to be on Russell Wilson, especially not in cash games. But maybe for tournaments, obviously, tough matchup against Jacksonville, probably the worst possible matchup for a quarterback. But Russell Wilson, the guy's just way too cheap. And I'm not sure if you guys have seen this stat, but I believe Russell Wilson, he's accounting for like 80%. It's something crazy, like 80% of his team's touchdowns. So pretty much anytime the Seahawks are scoring an offensive touchdown, it's usually coming from Russell Wilson, whether he's running it in, whether he's throwing it. The Seahawks, they really don't have a running game. They don't run the ball a ton. Wilson's always throwing the ball. He's been scrambling a lot lately. Just been doing a lot when it comes to fantasy. 32, 24 DraftKings points in his last 3 games. So I think Russell Wilson's actually an intriguing play for some tournaments. He's probably going to be really low owned because of the tough matchup against Jacksonville. But like I said, Wilson's just accounting for so much of Seattle's offense. So many of their touchdowns are coming through Russell Wilson. So definitely like him at 6,200 for some tournaments. But going like 6K and under, this is where I found a lot of options this week, especially in cash games. There are some options here that I do like. Starting off, Dak Prescott, 5,600, going up against the Giants. I definitely like Dak this week. Not sure I'll be using him in cash because he has been a little inconsistent lately. But this is a great price tag on Prescott, great matchup against the Giants. The Giants are not a good defensive team. They're not a good football team. They haven't been playing well at all this year. I really like going Dak to Dez in tournaments because that combo is very cheap this week. I know Dez is like under 6K, so it's not going to cost you much at all to go Dak to Dez if you want to do that in tournaments. Definitely think it is viable. I feel like this is a get-right spot for Dak. I feel like he's going to get close to 20, if not more than that, 20 DraftKings points. And if you pair him with Dez and both of those guys really connect, it could work out really nice in some tournaments. So definitely like going Dak to Dez in tournament lineups this week, and it won't cost you a ton of salary at all. And then getting to the cash game options, I have 2 cash game options I'm looking at this week, at least as of now. The first one is Jimmy Garoppolo at 5,500 going up against the Texans. Just really like this matchup for Garoppolo. The Texans' pass defense has not been good lately. And Garoppolo is coming off his first start for the 49ers last week against Chicago. He threw the ball 37 times, completed 26 passes, so completed 70% of his passes, 293 yards, was just 7 yards shy of the 300-yard bonus. Didn't have a touchdown at all last week. Still put up 11 DraftKings points. Houston does have a pretty stout run defense, so I feel like the 49ers are probably going to have to throw the ball some here. So I really like the spot for Garoppolo. I think him and another guy we'll talk about in a second are the cash game options this week. You probably could go Dak in cash if you wanted to, but Dak's just been so inconsistent. I think I'd prefer him for tournaments. But he is also very cheap, so I think he does make sense. But right now, I'm leaning Garoppolo and the other guy, Tyrod Taylor, 5,100, playing at home against the Colts. It does look like Tyrod Taylor is going to play this Sunday. He did practice, I believe, on Thursday. So there is a good chance Tyrod plays. And if he does play, I think he is another guy we want to consider at just 5,100. Obviously, a great matchup at home against the Colts, who do not have a good defense. I feel like this is a get-right spot for Tyrod if he does play. He has been really inconsistent lately, but some of these matchups he's had lately have been pretty tough. This is a cupcake matchup, one of the best matchups for a quarterback going up against the Colts. So absolutely love Tyrod this week. If he plays, him and Garoppolo, that's going to be a tough one that I have to decide on. Right now, I'm thinking I'm leaning Jimmy G for just 400 more. But him and Tyrod are two of the options that I really have my eye on this week at quarterback. If I'm looking to go cheap, I think Dak's also in play here as well for tournaments. But right now, Garoppolo and Tyrod are the two I'm looking for cash games. But yeah, guys, those are some quarterbacks I'm looking to target this week. Let's go ahead and move on to running back. All right, so at running back, always a position I like to pay up because we have guys up top here that have such high floors and high ceilings. They're great cash and tournament plays. The one running back that I really want to pay up for this week, probably going to have him in cash, is LaShawn McCoy. I talked about him in Monday's first look video. I just think this is a great spot for Shetty. The price tag, too cheap in my opinion at $7,200. We know Shetty plays well at home. If you just look at the DraftKings home and road splits, almost 20 DraftKings points he has averaged at home this year, whereas on the road, only 13 DK points. So Shetty plays well at home, great matchup against the Colts. I think if I'm paying up at running back, which is something I probably will be doing in cash games, there is a value running back that's really cheap that we'll get onto later in a second. But LaShawn McCoy is a guy that I'm going to be looking to pay up for this week, and it's not going to cost me that much. $7,200, there's a ton of value in my opinion on this slate. So I'm definitely going to be looking to fit in a guy like LaShawn McCoy this week at running back. And then looking in the mid-tier, I don't really like any of the other running backs. This is a tough spot for Todd Gurley. I don't know if I'm going to go to him. I think if I'm paying up the running back this week, I'm going to LaShawn McCoy. I'd prefer him over all these other three guys over 7K. I don't really like any of the options in the 6K range. I think 6K and under in this 5K price tier, there are a couple options here. First off, Jamal Williams at $5,900 going up against the Browns. I do really like this spot for Jamal Williams. He played really well last week against Tampa Bay. Even though Aaron Jones was active, I did get off of Jamal Williams because of that Aaron Jones news, which did cost me last week. But Jones didn't get any work. He only got one carry to finish the game. He got a rushing touchdown on the last play of the game. But Jamal Williams pretty much got all the work in their last game against Tampa Bay, even with Aaron Jones active. He ran the ball 21 times for 113 yards and a touchdown. Also got 2 catches for 10 yards, 23.3 DraftKings points last week against Tampa Bay with Aaron Jones active. So I think Williams has pretty much solidified himself as the workhorse back, the number one back. And Green Bay hasn't had a ton of success throwing the ball with Hundley. They've been using Williams a lot. The running game's been working out well for him. So I think he's a very good option at $5,900. Also think Lamar Miller is also a very good option for just $100 less, going up against the 49ers. I did talk about Lamar Miller in Monday's first look video. Still think he is a very good play this week at $5,800 playing at home against the 49ers. We know the 49ers do not have a very good pass defense or run defense. And Lamar Miller is involved in the passing game, which is something that is very valuable on DraftKings. With his full PPR scoring, you definitely want running backs that are involved in the passing game. And that is the case with Miller. He's a lock for pretty much about 4 targets every week. Got 4 targets last week, 4 catches for 38 yards against Tennessee. Also ran the ball 15 times for 56 yards. So Miller's been getting about 20 touches every game. And at just $5,800 in a really good matchup against the 49ers, I do like Lamar Miller at $5,800. I think him and Jamal Williams are 2 very good options in that 5K price range. And then there are 2 value running backs I want to touch on this week. Both of them are 5K and under, so they're pretty cheap value options if you do need to go this cheap. The first one is Peyton Barber at $4,500 going up against the Lions. If Doug Martin is out, we don't have news yet. I'm recording this on Thursday. If Martin does not play come Sunday, if he is going to be out, then Peyton Barber, I think, is a very good value option if you need to go this cheap at $4,500. With Martin out in their last game against Green Bay, Peyton Barber did start and he rushed the ball 23 times for 102 yards. Also got 4 targets as well, so he's been involved in the passing game. Got 4 catches for 41 yards, 21 DraftKings points last week against Green Bay with Doug Martin out. So if Martin is out again, I think Peyton Barber, great value option at $4,500. There is a very, very cheap option that's like the stone minimum that we'll get onto in a second that I'm sure everybody knows about. So if you do want to get contrarian, you want to play a value option that won't be as high owned as the guy we're about to talk about, I think Peyton Barber at $4,500, definitely a good value play if Doug Martin does not play this week. But the value option I do want to hit on, going to be really popular, it looks like. The Giovanni Bernard, $3,100, pretty much the stone minimum, going up against Chicago, going up against the Bears. It does not look like Joe Mixon's going to play this week come Sunday. So Giovanni Bernard should get the start. It looks like he's going to be the #1 back. And when Mixon went out last week against Pittsburgh during, I believe he came out in like the second quarter, I think, Bernard got 13 rushing attempts for 77 yards. Also got 3 targets as well. So put up 11 DraftKings points in the time that he was out there going up against Pittsburgh on Monday night. I think for cash games this week, if Mixon does not play, Giovanni Bernard's probably a lock in cash games just because of the price tag. You really only need like 10 DraftKings points from him in cash to hit value. And I think if Mixon does not play, it's very likely that Gio gets there. So obviously he is a great cash game play in tournaments. You don't have to lock him in tournaments. There is plenty of like 4K, 5K options at other positions to where you don't have to go this cheap. But for cash, if Mixon does not play, I think you just lock in Giovanni Bernard with the price tag. If Mixon is out, I think it's very likely Gio hits value. So definitely good cash play. But for tournaments, you can fade him if you want to. But yeah, guys, that's what I'm seeing at running back this week. Those are some guys I have my eye on come Sunday that I'm going to be looking to target in my lineups. Let's go ahead and move on to wide receiver. All right, so at wide receiver this week, if we're paying up at this position, there are 2 guys that I like here, like over 7K. The first one is at the very top, DeAndre Hopkins, 8,500 going up against the 49ers. Definitely like the spot for Nuke Hopkins. The guy's just been getting so many targets. The price tag definitely starting to rise, did rise. $1,200. He was only $7,300 last week against the Titans. He's now $8,500, but I still think he's worth the price tag. Hopkins is pretty much locked in for 10 targets every game. If you just look in his last 4 games, he's seen 14, 9, 10, and 14 targets, 21, 17, 22, 16 DraftKings points, just been so consistent. And this is a great matchup against the 49ers. So I think DeAndre Hopkins and the other guy we're about to talk about are the 2 options you do want to pay for. I think there's plenty of value to where if you play like Gio at running back, there's some cheap wide receivers we'll talk about in a second. There's a cheap tight end if injuries break our way that we can play, to where I think you can fit in at least 2 or 3 of these like expensive receivers and running backs. So DeAndre Hopkins, definitely an expensive guy I'm going to be looking to target. The other guy that I like to pay up for this position is AJ Green at 7,300 going up against the Bears. AJ Green looked very good Monday night against Pittsburgh. Got 16 targets in that game, got 7 catches for 77 yards and 2 touchdowns, 26 DraftKings points in a tough matchup last week against Pittsburgh. Now he's in a better spot this week, playing at home against the Bears, and has a very nice price tag as well at just 7,300. So I really like AJ Green as well this week. I think he is another option we definitely want to pay up for. I think probably my favorite options to pay up for this week are probably LaShawn McCoy, AJ Green, and Nuke Hopkins. Those are 3 guys I'm going to probably be trying to jam into my lineups, especially in cash games. And I think there is plenty of value to where you can fit in at least 2 or 3 of them. So up top at receiver this week, really like Nuke Hopkins and AJ Green. And then if we're looking in this mid-tier for some options here, there is a mid-tier option that I absolutely love this week that I think is way underpriced. I talked about him on Monday, but Larry Fitzgerald at 6,500 I feel like is just too cheap this week, especially given the matchup at home against the Titans. Just a great matchup for Larry Fitzgerald. The guy just gets the job done every week. The targets have been there every week, 14, 10, 8, and 10 targets in his last 4 games, 24, 24, 6, and 25 DraftKings points. When he did put up 6 DK points, that was probably the worst possible matchup for Fitzgerald going up against Jacksonville. We know they have a very good pass defense, have very good corners. This week, Fitzgerald's in a much better spot going up against the Titans, who do not have a good pass defense, very struggling pass defense. They don't have any good corners. And Fitzgerald's playing at home where he does play very well. So just absolutely love this spot for Larry Fitzgerald. I think he's too cheap for how well he's been playing lately. So 6,500, really like him in that mid-tier. I think I prefer him over guys like Tate, even Robbie Anderson, who's been playing well. If I'm going to that 6K range of receiver, Larry Fitzgerald is my favorite option there at 6,500. And then if we're looking sub 6K for maybe some more cheaper options, there's a guy here in this 5K range that I feel like going to be pretty popular this week, but for good reason. And that's Josh Gordon, 5,500, going up against the Packers. I'm hearing a lot of talk about Josh Gordon this week. I feel like he's going to be a very popular option. But like I said, it is for good reason. He did see 11 targets in his first game against the Chargers. The Browns were pretty much trying to force Josh Gordon the ball. And that was definitely a tough matchup for him against the Chargers. This week he's in a much better spot going up against the Packers, who have a really struggling pass defense. So great spot for Josh Gordon as long as the Browns are going to keep feeding him the ball, which it looks like they're going to try and do. I think he's a great play at 5,500. He's probably going to continue to see a ton of targets every week. So you're definitely going to want to hop on him now while he's 5,500. if he has a good game this week, I would imagine for Week 15, I don't know who the Browns play, but I'd imagine Josh Gordon's going to be like almost 7K next week. So you're probably going to want to hop on him now while he's only 5,500. Will definitely be a lot more expensive next week. And then there is one more receiver that I do like in that 5K range. If you want to pair him with Garoppolo, I think it makes a ton of sense. And that is Marques Goodwin at 5,100 going up against the Texans. Garoppolo did target Marques Goodwin a lot in their season in Garoppolo's season opener against the Bears when he did start against the Bears last week. Marques Goodwin got 8 targets, caught all 8 of his targets, 8 catches for 99 yards, with just 1 yard shy of the 100-yard bonus. So he put up 17.9 DraftKings points. If he would have just got 1 more yard, he would have finished with 21 DK points. So Garoppolo is clearly looking to target Goodwin. So I think if you want to pair those two together, it won't cost you any salary at all. Really cheap combo, and I think it makes plenty of sense. So definitely like Marques Goodwin as well in that 5K range. I would prefer just to find $400 and get up to Gordon. But for tournaments, I know Gordon's going to be high owned this week, so you can go to Goodwin, save some salary, and he's probably going to be a lot lower owned than Josh Gordon will. And then 5K and under, there is one play that I like here for value. It's pretty cheap, 4,200. D.D. Westbrook going up against Seattle. We all know Seattle's corners are pretty depleted right now. Richard Sherman's done for the season. So I think we can definitely attack Seattle this week with D.D. Westbrook at just 4,200. The guy in 3 games this year with Jacksonville has seen plenty of targets, 6, 10, and 9 targets through 3 games with Jacksonville this year. And he's been really consistent, 6, 10, and 13 DraftKings points. Really hasn't seen much of a price increase. He's only 4,200 this week. And as long as Allen Hurns remains out, I think D.D. Westbrook is a value option that we can target come Sunday, 4,200. If you need to go cheaper receiver, I think he's a great play at his cheap price tag. But yeah, guys, that's what I'm seeing at receiver this week. Let's go ahead and move on to tight end. All right, so at tight end, I always say this is a position I usually like to go a little bit cheaper. Obviously, there are good tournament plays up top. Travis Kelce, guy has a ton of upside. We saw it last week against the Jets. I really wasn't considering Kelce in cash, but for tournaments, these are options that you can definitely pay up for. So if you do want to pay up for some tournament options at tight end, I think I'd just go to Kelce. He'd be the guy I would pay up for, just go all the way up to the top to fit him in. But in this mid-tier and towards the cheaper end of where I like to go at tight end, a couple options here in this 4K range I think we can target. The first guy is Hunter Henry at 4,600. He is a guy that I definitely like this week as a tight end option, going up against the Redskins. We all know the Redskins have really good corners. They got Breeland, Josh Norman. They are susceptible up the middle. They do struggle to tight ends, so I think this is a good spot for Hunter Henry. Been seeing nice targets just as of late. Last 2 games, 5 and 9 targets, 18 and 15 DraftKings points. Really good matchup this week against Washington. I think Hunter Henry makes a ton of sense at 4,600. If you are looking in that mid-tier at tight end, I think he is a cash game option. There is one really cheap tight end that's like under 3K that's probably going to be a lock in cash games if injuries break our way. But if injuries don't break our way and he's not an option, then I think Hunter Henry is probably the go-to guy after him at 4,600. And there is one more tight end I like in that 4K range. It's Cameron Bray, 4,100, going up against Detroit. With Jameis Winston back last week against Green Bay, Bray did see 6 targets, got 39 yards through 6 targets, but he did catch 2 touchdowns last week against Green Bay. As long as Winston is in there, Cameron Bray's going to see a ton of red zone looks. He's going to be targeted plenty of times. He did see a big price increase, which definitely scares me. He did increase in price like over 1K. But as long as Winston is in at quarterback, I think Bray does make sense at 4,100 in that 4K price tier. And then there are 2 value tight ends I want to touch on this week. The first one is ASJ at 3,600 going up against Denver. Denver does really struggle to tight ends. We know they have a good defense, even though their defense has been struggling lately. They struggled against tight ends pretty much all year. ASJ has definitely been inconsistent, which does worry me a bit. But this is a really good matchup. He does have a very nice price tag. He's really cheap this week at just 3,600. So I think he is a cheap option that we can consider at 3,600. But the one cheap option that's probably going to be on everyone's radar if injuries break our way, I talked about him on Monday's video, but Trey Burton at just 2,900 going up against the Rams. If Zach Ertz does not play on Sunday, right now I am recording this video on Thursday. We don't have news like if Ertz is going to play. If Ertz is out, then I think Trey Burton's probably the lock tight end, at least for cash games at 2,900. Burton has played really well this year when Ertz has missed. He did miss Week 9 against Denver, and Trey Burton put up 12 DraftKings points. He did miss a little bit of time in Seattle. He didn't miss that whole game. I believe he came out in like the second quarter. Burton did see 7 targets in that game, 4 catches, 42 yards, 8 DraftKings points. So if Zach Ertz is out this week, Trey Burton's probably a lock in cash games at 2,900. At least I think so, just because of the price tag. Should see plenty of targets with Ertz out. So definitely keep an eye on him. If Zach Ertz does not play on Sunday, Trey Burton, 2,900, very good tight end option for very cheap. But yeah, guys, that's what I'm seeing at tight end this week. There's some tight ends I have my eye on. Let's go ahead and move on to defense. Alright, so at defense this week, I'm keeping my pool pretty narrow. Just have 3 options written down that really catch my eye. The first one is at 3,300. The Bengals playing at home against the Bears. I think it's a really good spot for the Bengals defense. The Bears offense is not good. Mitchell Trubisky has not looked good this year. Not a great quarterback. He will turn the ball over. And the Bengals are playing at home, and I always like to target defenses at home. So I think they are a very good option at 3,300. Them and the Bills are probably my 2 favorite defenses in that 3K tier. I'd probably prefer the Bills over them, though, at 3,100. I talked about the Bills in Monday's video. I think they're my favorite defense this week, just given the price tag and the matchup, playing at home against the Colts. The Colts' offensive line is not good. Brissett's been taking a ton of sacks this year. So if the Bills can get pressure on Brissett, they should definitely be able to get some sacks, maybe even force some turnovers. And the Bills are also playing at home. So I think it's a great spot for them. Really nice price tag at 3,100, just given the matchup against the Colts. So really like the Bills. They're probably my favorite defense this week. They're probably going to be a lot more popular than the Bengals will. So I think if you want a GPP option, go to the Bengals. But for cash games this week, I'm looking at the Bills at 3,100. And then my third option that I have written down is 3K and under, a value defense. The Buccaneers playing at home against Detroit. If Matthew Stafford is out this week, which it does look like he probably won't play, I think the Buccaneers are a very good defense to target this week at home. They have played well at home this year. Their defense has played well. And Jake Rudock is not a very good quarterback, so if Stafford is out, Rudock will be getting the start. And like I said, he's not very good. I had the Ravens defense last week, week 13. I know Stafford came out of that game and Rudock came in and threw a pick 6. So that helped out my Ravens defense last week. If Rudock's going to play this week, I definitely am going to be considering the Buccaneers defense at just 2,800. I do like them as a value option. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it for defense. Like I said, I'm keeping this pool pretty narrow. 3 options here, the Bengals, Bills, and Buccaneers. And I do want to show you guys something real quick this week. If I was to make a cash game lineup this week, there are so many value options that I think you can fit in like 3 or 4 studs. I know I did talk about a ton of studs like at each position. But say we were to build a cash game lineup and say that injuries broke our way. So for cash games, quarterback, we always like to go cheap. I said Jimmy G is probably my favorite option here. So say if we plugged him in, if Mixon's out, we're probably going to be putting in Gio at just 3,100 in cash. He's probably going to be locked for cash games if Mixon does not play. If Zach Ertz does not play, obviously Trey Burton, great cash game option. So if we plugged him in 2,900, that's another cheap play. And then if we played the Bills at 3,100 in cash, they're another mid-tier cheap defense. And if you go with those 4, if injuries break our way, that leaves you 7K remaining per player. So I know I talked about a ton of studs, but like I said, if injuries do break our way, Mixon's out, Zach Ertz is out, you can fit in like 3 or 4 studs this week. This is probably the route that I'm going to be going in cash games if Mixon and Zach Ertz do not play. I'll probably be jamming in Shady, jamming in Nuke, jamming in AJ Green, just fitting in all the studs I can because I think there is a ton of value. Just as you can see, 7K remaining per player if you play these 4, and if injuries do break our way. So I'm just showing you guys all the value that's out there this week. Try and fit in as many studs as you can. But yeah, guys, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching. I do really appreciate it. Make sure you drop a like on the video if you haven't already, and be sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel. If you never want to miss out on any of my new videos, make sure you hit that bell icon next to the subscribe button, and that will send you notifications, so that way you'll never miss out on any of my new vids. And yeah, guys, I think that's pretty much it. Make sure you check out my recap video on Monday where I recap the Week 14 slate, talk about my cash game lineup, and break it down. Make sure you check that video out on Monday as well. And I'll also be doing a video where I look at the Week 15 slate, give my early looks and early thoughts on that slate. That video will be going up on Monday as well, so make sure you check both of those out. But yeah, guys, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and good luck this week, guys. Peace.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Yeah, she shaking fast. Yeah, she dropping slow. What? Yeah, neck on fro. Whoa, 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 whoa.